listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast. My name is Farhan, also known as Gunner since '96, and as always, joining me here this evening is Adam Keys. Adam, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so starting off with the first question. Has Ramsdale been dropped as Arsenal's number one?
No.
Did Arteta pick the right starting lineup?
Yes.
And have we lost our killer instinct in the final third from last season?
No.
Okay, good stuff. Adam, how are you doing? How are you feeling after that very anxious-filled game? Edge of the seat kind of stuff?
Yeah, to be honest, I never felt edge of the seat. I feel more relieved because I never thought Everton were going to score. And I thought it was one of those that if we kept plugging away at them, we would get that goal. My worry was that it was going to be one of those days where, especially in the lead up to the goal, when we just couldn't seem to take our chances, that it was ultimately going to be one of those days where those big blocks, those saves, those near misses, they just end up costing you. So it's just a sense of relief. We knew the kind of game we were going to go and play against Everton, and that's a big, big hurdle to come through. So I'm pretty pleased tonight. I think that's a big, big 3 points for Arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I was saying at the end of the game, my wife just popped into the room, literally a minute and a half before final whistle, which is probably the worst time to kind of step into the frame. But yeah, at the final whistle, at the final bell, I was saying this is a really big victory in terms of like the psychological impact that it will have on not only just the boys but Arteta as well, because we know that Goodison Park has been a bit of a difficult place for us to go to, and so it's at the end of the game, you're probably just relieved that we got the victory no matter how we did it. Whereas watching the game, it was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of complaints coming from my part, not really understanding why the game was being played at the pace and the style that we were playing it in. But ultimately, that fixture has now been crossed out from the list, and it's a game that we don't need to worry about until next season. So it's very similar to a few seasons back or during the latter stages of Arsene Wenger's tenure and Unai Emery's years, where we were doomed every time we would go to Burnley. So yeah, good to see Everton, good to see the back of Everton, Goodison Park, and now looking ahead to a very tricky run of games, and I'm sure we'll have a conversation about that at some point in this episode. So let's kick off our chat by dissecting the starting lineup. What did you make of it? A lot was said about who potentially could be played. Me and Monty had a chat during the middle of the week on the preview show actually, and I was really intrigued to see how Arteta would approach this with one eye on the Champions League and also the North London derby. So what did you make of it?
I liked it. I would have liked to have seen maybe a bit more rotation, and possibly one of Saka or Martinelli given a breather today, given the number of games we've got coming up ahead. And it's something a lot of people on Twitter have been saying to us: you play your best team every game. You play your best team every game, you're going to see what happened last season. Pep rotates constantly. It's those attacking wide players, the players that play every game for City: Rodri, Ederson, Haaland. It's spine players. It's not wingers that are being kicked week in, week out. It's not players that are picking pockets, running at players. And that's what we need to get better at as a fan base, is accepting that we need to rotate as a team. And with that, we just need to not go into meltdown whenever our favourite players are dropped, or not dropped, rotated. Because we keep talking about needing squad depth. We keep talking about improving the quality of the squad. But the minute rotation is suggested, everyone freaks out. Today I had someone saying, I want Arsenal to be a team that picks the best team every week, like Real Madrid, the class of '92, Pep City. And I replied and said to them, I don't think you realise the irony of what you're saying. Fergie was the first person in football to truly utilise his full squad. It was the squad players that won United so many titles. The Parchy Songs, the John O'Shea's, Darren Fletcher's, those players down the years. City, obviously, we talk about it all the time, the number of minutes the likes of Foden plays compared to Saka, or even if you look at Grealish, Bernardo, those players are rotated all the time. They're not playing 90s every week. A lot of the time, you're seeing Foden coming in and out of the team as a starter. So, and Real Madrid have played, I think, 4 different teams this season with small tweaks in midfield because they've got a ridiculous amount of quality in the centre of the pitch. So this is something that we need to accept as a fan base. This is going to happen. And it's, again, today, I think I would have liked to have seen a bit more rotation, but we'll probably see that against PSV. And I did really like Fabio Vieira coming in. I know you've been a big advocate for Kai Havertz being dropped. However, for me, I just like to see Vieira being rewarded for the performances he's put in. And I like the starting 11. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, very much I share the same sentiment in that I was hoping for a little bit more rotation. I was glad to see David Raya be put in the squad, and a lot was made of why he was in for Ramsdale, whether Ramsdale was losing his number one. I mean, I know I asked you that question at the beginning. It was very much tongue-in-cheek and actually quite sarcastic. I just couldn't believe the narrative that Sky were trying to spin, questioning whether Ramsdale had lost his spot, why Arsenal have 2 starting goalkeepers. And I, for one, am pleased to see this. It only makes sense for David Raya to have some game time. And when you look at the next 2 games with the Champions League and the North London derby, where else is he going to get games? And actually, this is something that Arteta was advocating for a very long time, to have very good players, very good squad players being rotated on a regular basis, and as do Man City do, like you mentioned, on a regular basis. It was good to see Vieira come in as well. I think he deserved his spot. However, me and you we were discussing, and even Monty as well, during the build-up of this fixture, would have been nice to see a bit more physicality in the team. I thought with the amount of pace that was on show, I assumed that we were going for a quick kill, in the first 20-25 minutes to just end the game. To see Zinchenko playing at left back, to see, again, Vieira in the middle as well, seeing Nketiah up front. And again, Saka and Martinelli, do they both need to be playing at the same time, especially when we have depth on those flanks, when we've got players like Emil Smith-Rowe, players like Reece Nelson? I'm really intrigued to, I guess, find out. Trossard as well. Really intrigued to find out from you about the Emil Smith-Rowe situation. I mean, what more does a guy need to do in order to get game time? I find it really hard to believe that he's not training hard enough. He was once considered as, the next best thing from Coney after Bukayo Saka. So a little bit disappointed not to see players like him, Nelson. Little bit disappointed not to see others like even Kivior, who had a really good international break. So, but having said that, a strong starting lineup, and the beauty about this situation that we're in is that Arsenal have strength and depth in all areas of the pitch, and it's a good problem to have. It's a better conversation for us to be having than to say there's not enough depth, we don't have, or why is this individual playing? He's not good enough. So yeah, all in all, happy days. And as I said, I expected Arsenal to start quite quick and to get a goal nice and early. I'm missing the days of when we used to kill teams off quite early. If we look back at the beginning stages of last season, it seems like we're very much of a different caliber side, or maybe we're just a little bit more well-oiled, a bit more finely tuned. Last season, it seemed like we were very chaotic in a good way. We were, I guess, a little bit more punchy, a little bit more zippy. Now it feels like we're being more patient, we're buying our time, we're being a little bit more understanding of the game. Is that this? I mean, do you share that kind of sentiment?
I think we're easing into games more We're building up slowly. We're not trying to go at teams at 100 mile an hour. And I think every fan loves a really fast start. I think there's no denying that. We love it as much as anyone, but at the same time, I think that has cost us at times. And it's against Fulham, it cost us. We conceded very early. I saw a stat, and it's Arsenal have conceded 7 times this year from the opponent's first shot, which is a pretty crazy statistic whenever you see it. So I think kind of easing our way into games isn't a bad thing. I also don't think we're playing passively at the start. I think we are building up in an attacking sense and really asserting our dominance on the game. Whereas when you start with the controlled chaos that we had last year, that does always open you up, that whenever you lose it, it allows the opposition to really hit you on the counter, and it becomes a very, very high intense game in the first 10 minutes. And ultimately, that means legs get heavier as the game goes on because you're starting with such a high exertion straight on. So I would much rather see us ultimately control the games to ensure that we're winning more games and that we're probably managing our energy levels better, even if that means it's slightly less exciting, because you can play the most exciting football in the world, but if you're coming away with a defeat, none of us like that. And so for me, right now, I think we are still very much finding our kind of true form. You have to remember Zinchenko has just come back. United was his first full game. We've lost Thomas Partey, so that's very quickly disjointed the team. Gabriel played for Brazil. That game kicked off at 3 a.m. UK time on Wednesday morning, or 3 or 4 a.m. UK time on Wednesday morning. He has since come back from South America and gone straight back in. So there's a good chance he didn't have any time on the training ground. So all these factors come into play whenever you've just come back off an international break. And I thought today we played some beautiful football at times, and it was really great to see how we responded. As you know, I've been in New York all week. I came back and I slept for nearly 20 hours because the time zone leaves you just completely wiped. So to go and play at Goodison in a really high intensity kind of physical environment, having just gone across a completely different time zone and taken, I don't know what the flight time is, but probably 10 hours, something like that, and straight back in, land off to Liverpool. You're never going to see the most free-flowing performance from a team when everyone's been apart for 2 weeks. And today was about getting the 3 points, and that's what we did.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's talk about the opening exchanges, the opening first 10 minutes. I think that there was a steady theme in that first half, but we did start the game off quite well. I noticed almost immediately Zinchenko stepping into midfield, the centre of midfield as well, and Arsenal playing a free at the back. And I think that's something which Arteta's introduced this season, which maybe is having an impact on the way that we're being able to build up. But ultimately, the more bodies we have in advanced position, the better it is, the more chances we have to penetrate to the opposition defensive lines, and it showed. We were being allowed to play deep into midfield without much opposition, playing deep balls into the box, and good passing tempo as well. Martinelli picked up the ball on a good few occasions, and something else that I noticed in the early sort of few minutes of the game, Martinelli dropping into this really weird central midfield position, and then
he played a horrible
moment
pass at one point.
Played the ball straight out to Everton. So I don't know whether that's something else that Arteta is trying to test out. See, there seems to be a lot of this trial and error going on right now. I noticed few things every game, few new things. I mean, we were lucky to be playing an Everton side who looked a little bit unsure of themselves, really not sure what route to take.
That Everton team are not good.
This time round, they didn't know whether to go long, whether to play it on the grass, whether to build up possession, quite clumsy with the ball, and it played into our strengths because it allowed us to win the ball back really quickly and then try and push it up as quickly as possible. And there was an early chance as well. There was a great chance here in the 18-yard box, corner taken short with the ball given back to Zinchenko, plays it neatly to Vieira, and then he drags the shot high and wide. But early signs showed that Arsenal were knocking at the door. It wasn't as if we were passive throughout the half. We definitely started strong, and there's something kind of fizzled out. But would you agree with that kind of assessment of the opening first 10 minutes of the game?
Yeah, I think we were very dominant on the ball. And I think the trial and error thing, I think that has to happen at the start of the season. You're not going to do that come the absolute business end, the last 10 games. You can't do that. And I think Arteta talks about being unpredictable. When you can come away with a win and you've tested things, and testing and learning is the biggest part of anything. If you want to move forward, it happens in business, it happens in sport. And if you don't constantly tweak what you're doing, you get figured out and someone else comes in and does it better. So I'm really pleased to see these little things being implemented every week. And it's something I think we're only going to get better at as the season goes on. I think there was spells of the game where we went very much back to what we know and what we do well. But there was also, as you say, the likes of Martinelli coming in field and so on. Those elements of the game really make defenders think. And a Sean Dyche low block is completely different to any other low block. It's extra low. It's so physical. It's hoof forward. And I think you're right in Everton didn't know whether to play it on the deck or in the air, because there were sometimes they actually had some good exchanges between their players and countered us quite well. But at the back, Saliba was just a monster. He looked so at ease, and Beto was a huge forward. You kind of forget how big Saliba is. Whenever he was standing side by side with Beto, he looked, I think they're about the same height, and Saliba looked just as big and powerful, but he's got such grace whenever he does everything. So I think the kind of unpredictableness of our build-up really allowed us to drag them out and make them unsure when they went forward. But as I say, they are a very, very poor side, and they're never a side that are overly sure of what to do when they're on the ball. They like to just hoof it and kick the opposition. They're just that kind of horrible football side.
Yeah, they strike me as the type of side who need a little bit of tension in the game, who need to, I guess, put off the opposition in order to be able to get in the game. I mean, you know, they were. I think they were, even in the very early stages of the game, they were inviting pressure so that something could happen, a collision could take place, and it will rattle the fans. There was a moment where Eddie Nketiah was driving at. Yeah, that moment where Eddie Nketiah was driving at Pickford, takes him out, obviously not on purpose, and it just makes the whole stadium erupt. You know, having said that as well, I have to say I was really pleased in the opening 15-20 minutes at how well Odegaard and Nketiah were with their pressing. I think it did play into our favour, but you know, they soon were able to kind of figure it out and play out from the back really well. But the tempo of the game did die down a little bit after the opening sort of 15-ish minutes. Not much movement from us, and we were making it quite difficult for ourselves to unlock Everton. And I have to say, sometimes we would give the opposition a lot of credit for that because they set up really well. But in Everton's case, as I was watching us playing the ball from side to side, trying to get ourselves trying to find some rhythm, I could notice pockets of space where we could, if we wanted to, play the ball into those spaces and try and be a little bit more inventive. But for whatever reason, the tempo of the passing was just a little bit below par, and it didn't help that we had, you know, two players marking Saka out. Obviously, he was facing Mikalenko, who had already played during the international break, and you know, there were. I think what was more frustrating for me is that we would often play the ball really nicely on the grass, and then you would see a long ball go over the top and we'd concede possession. Why is it that Arsenal, for some reason, they play this really, you know, kind of almost heavy-footed, really long-winded passing combination approach. Where has that zip gone from the way that we built up in the past?
I think we've always played that way. It's just, I think part of it is whenever we were starting last year, we started with that intensity that you spoke of, and we were scoring early in a lot of games. And that was causing sides to really come at us because they were having to come out. They couldn't keep that deep block in place. And that probably, I think when you're a goal up and you're playing against a team and you're playing those really intricate passing combinations, you don't notice it as much because whereas whenever you're chasing the goal and the ball is played in really tight pockets and you're trying to move it quickly and manipulate the players, it becomes more frustrating to watch because something that's really good when you're 2-0 up that doesn't come off, you're clapping the players. Whenever you're chasing that goal, it's 0-0 or you're one down, whatever it is, you get frustrated at exactly the same thing. And I think it's the emotions that we've got invested in it, how it feels whenever, like, if something comes off and it's 0-0 versus if something comes off and it's 1-0, there's completely different reactions. I think there's a huge response. And when you're chasing a goal, you're just so determined for that goal that those slow passing movements and the really intricate play seem more frustrating than they do whenever you're comfortably in the lead and you're clapping your team and everything's going well. So I don't think our style of play has changed anywhere near as much as people think. I think we're retaining it a lot more. We're in more control of the game than we were. But in terms of the intricate build-up, I think that's always been there. And if you look at the likes of Newcastle last year, the game in January, they played such a low block against us. But we played such intricate football that game. Zinchenko was picking pockets all day. And Nketiah was really, really working every angle. And that's kind of similar to what we saw today, where every bit of space Arsenal were trying to exploit it. And down that right-hand side with Saka, White, Odegaard, they were the ones playing really intricate passes. And it was great to see them together. But I don't think the style of play has changed a huge amount. I just think we're not taking our chances in the way that we were a year ago. And that's causing, I think it's causing us as fans to be slightly more frustrated, but also the level of expectations versus last year are so much higher. So I think that all feeds into each other.
Yeah, no, I for one do think that maybe not the style of play, but definitely the tempo and the pace has changed. There were just far too many moments in that opening half an hour where that pass could have been made a second earlier, or you didn't need to take that additional touch, or it doesn't need to be played to the side. It could be played between the lines. I don't know whether it's a confidence. I don't think it is a confidence thing. I think it's more to do with finesse. We're just being a little bit too obsessed with being perfect. That's what it comes across on TV anyway. But let's move on to talk about the disallowed goal. Because as the game was being slowed down a little bit, something happens which, lifts everything. It's a goal that was disallowed and a massive bit of controversy because I'm still yet to figure out why it was disallowed. I get that it was offside, but I need to really understand. I need someone to really explain to me how it can be offside when the ball that was played into the path of Eddie Nketiah was through a deflection. And the original pass that Gabriel was making wasn't even intended to be played to Nketiah. It was intended for a player across the pitch. So can you try and drill this offside rule, this bit of craziness, try and make sense of it for me? I don't seem to get it.
I don't get it either. I'll be honest. I think Gary Neville was talking bollocks again when he was talking about the angles. The angle that we saw was like that we saw a snapshot on TV, and so much is being done to try and create controversy around football. The actual decision of the offside, look, Nketiah was slightly offside. There's no doubt in that. Martinelli may have been offside had they have looked at that. I don't think he is from the angle that I saw, but we didn't get to that point. The issue for me is exactly what you've just said. Gabriel plays that ball infield. Beto's touch sends it the whole way down the pitch, I don't care if he's in control of that ball. His plan is to play it backwards to an Everton teammate. He's played it backwards to an Everton teammate. They all fail to deal with it. He probably overhits it, and Nketiah comes back from an offside position and wins that ball. So for me, his action was to play the ball backwards. He's played it backwards. He's changed the direction of Arsenal's build-up. He's changed everything about how we're playing in that moment. So to say he's not in control of the ball, or that wasn't the decision he was trying to make, is just, it's nonsense for me. And I think, look, the lines, we saw the Garnacho goal rolled out against us a couple of weeks ago, and we were all happy to see that decision made. We can't argue with the lines across the pitch, and as much as people are trying to push that narrative, it's completely untrue. If Nketiah was offside, he was offside. However, the point is, he was coming from an offside position as a result of the ball being played by an Everton player, and that's the bit that, for me, wasn't properly looked into. And again, I'm really intrigued to hear the commentator or the VAR sound footage whenever it comes out, because it's another bizarre decision, and I'd be really intrigued to see what their rationale is behind it. And again, what you said about not fully understanding this, I think we're all in the same boat right now. We've got commentators talking about it. Kevin De Bruyne did an interview, I think last year or the year before, and he was like, the rules are being changed so often, even the players don't understand fully what we're being told. So I don't get it. But the goal itself, what a finish! That was a beautiful finish.
I think Neville said it on Henry-esque, right?
Yeah, it was just great finish. He took it so well. It's a lovely pass through from Fabio Vieira. It would have been his third assist in 3 games, and it was one of those I think Martinelli really could have done with that goal, and then he's obviously injured himself in the build-up. So. And again, this is something we keep hearing. So the flag's not put up because it's reviewed by VAR. We've always heard there is going to be an injury someday because of play not being stopped. Martinelli has got injured today as a result of the play not being stopped for an offside. And had that flag have gone up early whenever Nketiah was offside, again, Martinelli doesn't have the actions that lead to the goal that leads to the injury. And so, yeah, I don't think any of us truly understand the offside rule anymore. And I think the worst thing about it is I don't think the officiating staff actually understand it either. So this is why I'm going to be really, really intrigued to hear the footage that comes out from the game, because if that goal goes in, that's a different game. What was it, 25 minutes or so into the game when it went in?
Yeah.
So yeah, 25 minutes in at Goodison Park, whenever we had just been peppering their low block, suddenly they have to come out at us. I think we win that 4-0 if we score at that point. But obviously they kept their shape after that, and it just leads to a tougher, kind of more confident Everton. That really lifted the crowd as well. So again, what you're saying about the like that KG atmosphere, it took a goal being disallowed for offside to really raise them. That's how bad their football is. That's how few chances they have to celebrate. They can only celebrate not conceding. So yeah, really frustrating one, and one that I think we're just going to keep seeing these week in, week out until we actually understand the rule.
Thankfully, that decision didn't end up harming us at the end of the game. However, we have lost Martinelli now to what looks like a hamstring injury, which isn't good news at all. He's going to be assessed. We will find out the severity of it in the coming days, I assume. But hamstring injuries are never good injury news for anyone. With a fixture congestion of really tough and competitive games, we need as many players as we can get. And I guess the silver lining to this is that we will now get to see players like Nelson and Emile Smith-Rowe potentially as well, who will be given their opportunities. But obviously, goes without saying, a speedy recovery for Martinelli, who is soon taken off for Trossard, who I felt like had a really mixed bag today.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely didn't play to the tempo of the game, or he didn't play to the tempo that was needed. I think with Martinelli, you get an injection of pace and energy. And the beauty about playing both Saka and Martinelli is that they both kind of mirror each other's energy levels. They're both really rapid in the way that they receive the ball and then carry it. And so, oppositions are left kind of with a bit of a conundrum of how many players to distribute where. They're left scarce. So when Trossard came on, you could tell that he was a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow in receiving and moving the ball, often a bit reluctant to take on his man. And so that's why Saka ended up being isolated, with Mykolenko having a few nibbles at him. Probably should have been sent off as well, if we're being honest, early on in the second half. But anyway, as you were saying, the first half anyway, that decision really did kill off the momentum and the urgency that we were, sort of really finding it difficult to play in. But there were a few more opportunities as well. However, there were moments in the game where Everton did find a way to kind of get back into or create some opportunities for themselves, albeit based on the mistakes that we were making in midfield. Rice made a clumsy mistake in midfield where Decore managed to pick up the ball, advance straight into the box. Saliba does so well, almost kind of like the Gabriel moment where he sticks his body forward and then moves it backwards in order to play Garnacho offside. It was very uncanny. Saliba sticks his leg out, pulls it away, and then Decore falls for it. But we survived that sloppy moment. And, really, we're looking at players like Odegaard, like even Zinchenko as well in that first half, had a really different game to the second half. Let's talk about the 18-yard box and why it was almost impossible for us to make any magic happen. What do you think it comes down to? Is it a case of finding the wrong channels, or is it players like Odegaard just not showing up and not receiving the ball in tight spaces? I think Gary Neville made a really good point, and Gunnerblog, tweeted it at half-time, where Neville quoted that Arsenal needed to play the ball into tight spaces in order to just be able to create something, because it was just far too safe.
Yeah, it's one of the few good points Gary Neville made in his whole commentary. But I completely agreed with him, and I think we did that in the second half. We very quickly started that way, but I felt we were playing quite safe in the first half. There was almost a desire to just retain the ball at times, and a lot of passes were going sideways. They were being laid off quickly. As you said earlier, there was that extra touch when a first-time pass would have done. Quick sweep it away, keep the move going, really keep them on their toes and make them think. But around the box, we just didn't seem to have that spark in the first half. But I think coming in kind of the last 10 minutes, so kind of 38 to the 48th, 49th minute, we started to get that spark, and we did start to really up the tempo. And for me, I was watching, I was thinking we're going to get a goal before half time here. And we didn't really create the chances that I think our play warranted. And on another day, which we keep saying this season, I think we do get a goal during that period just because we were very, very dominant. And they had a really strong spell right before that. It was around the time of Decore's penalty appeal, where they were really coming into the game and they were pushing hard, they were fighting, they were starting to move the ball a bit better. And it all came around from our sloppy play. And a lot of that sloppy play was sideways passes without the right zip on them, with the extra touch. And it felt like around the 30th minute, we got a bit complacent in the game. And it's the same thing we've seen a lot of over the last year, where we're so dominant and the opposition can't get near us. And then we have this really erratic 10-minute period. And thankfully, Everton are such a toothless side with no creativity that they couldn't take advantage. But I do worry that there is going to be a game where we see the opposition potentially scoring 1 or 2 during that period and killing the game. So Yeah, I do think it was one of those around the edge of the box. Neville was right. We needed to play it with more zip. We needed just that extra zest on the ball that really flashes across the surface and enables someone to get in behind. But I there were chances, and again, some of it is about one individual like stepping up and really making something happen. And again, we saw Odegaard at times where he had a couple of shots today, which again on another day he would have done better. And again, I thought Odegaard actually had a mixed performance. I've seen a lot of people praising him and about how well he did. I thought he was good. I didn't think it was the best Odegaard game. And it was one of those where sometimes you do just need that moment of magic from a player to really unlock a really deep, stubborn defence like we saw today. And that is ultimately what happened with Trossard's goal.
Yeah, I mean, we're not asking for much here. I mean, all you need in a game is a little bit of intensity and a little bit of risk, you know? And when we're playing these passes from side to side, there's no element of risk. There's no element of, you know, you're just kind of repeating the same process over and over again, expecting something different to happen. We want to see you play it between the lines. We want to see you, you know, back into a challenge or play it into a position where you know that the opposition is going to put a foot in. Just something to just raise that intensity level. And I think one of the best chances we had in the game came right at the end of the first half, where Zinchenko puts in a delicious ball over the top for Vieira, who's into space, gets the ball into the box, but rather than having a shot, he pulls it back and it's cleared out by Everton. That moment was the perfect example of it personified exactly what was wrong with the game. Too safe, not adventurous enough, making the football look and feel harder than it should be. You know, we were the team who were often described as being able to play the most fluid, the most attractive, the most, you know, exciting brand of football. It just wasn't really clicking in that first half. And we were lucky, actually, to not concede, because I think McNeil had a shot that was blocked. And again, it just came from us not reacting quick enough, especially during the build-up. But yeah, I think the overall sentiment, and you nailed it in the head, didn't you, at the end of the first half, where you picked the perfect word to describe it, which was
passive.
Yeah, that's just what it means. Complete passive, right? Yeah, so it was absolutely passive. It was very stale and, you know, frustrating. So with that, I guess that sound can only mean one thing. We have arrived at the halfway point of this. Of the first half. No, we haven't arrived at the halfway point of the first half. We've arrived at the halfway point of the show, which means that we're going straight into the second half. So, first half, frustrating, difficult to digest. Second half, though, it does start to get a little bit more zesty, you know, a little bit more flavour injected into the game. Zinchenko starts to overlap Trossard's runs, and it's inviting pressure, you know. The intention is clearly to be more advanced. And actually, two big chances happen in the opening minutes of the second half. There's one moment where a great ball is delivered into the face of the box, across the face of the box by Vieira. No one is there to poke it home. And then Odegaard gets an opportunity, a stinging strike, which Pickford saves. So are you, are you happy with what happens in the opening exchanges in the second half?
Yeah, I thought we started really well, and I think we answered the questions that were put to us at halftime, which was get those passes in earlier, sharper, more zest on them, that draw Everton players out, make them come at us and make them really defend rather than just sitting deep. And that was exactly what happened with those early exchanges where we did get in behind. And I thought Vieira was one of the players that was really looking very creative at that time. So yeah, it was, I felt sort of in the first 2 or 3 minutes that we were going to score. And we did look really good. The football was sharp, it was fluid, and it was one of those where we just couldn't take our chances. And again, I thought the finishing was slightly off. There was our end product at times was slightly off. The movement, so the likes of that Vieira pass across the box. On another day, you see Saka Nketiah or Odegaard attacking that space and putting the ball in the back of the net. We even saw Ben White do it last season. Was it the Bournemouth game that White scored by attacking the box? And and White himself had a stinging shot that off his left foot that Pickford held on to. So there was real intensity starting to come into our game. There was real intent from the minute we came back onto the pitch, and it was really great to see. But I do think this is one of those, we talk about the international break and the effect it has on players. It's something that I think there's been kind of 30 years of evidence of how hard it is to come back after an international break. And we've seen some shock results this weekend. So when you're going to a bogey ground after the international break, to pick you up and kind of go out with that free-flowing style, it's difficult to do. So when we did go in and level at half-time, and a bit frustrated, I think is fair to say, the way Arteta picked the team back up and we came back out really fighting in the second half was very impressive to see. So it's just a shame that goal didn't come a bit earlier.
Yeah, and you know what? I really thought it would come because we showed a lot more intent and urgency, especially with Zinchenko and Odegaard, who were isolating themselves in that first half. Zinchenko, for one, was lingering around in the middle of the pitch. He was a lot more advanced in the second half. Odegaard, for one as well, was actually getting into the spaces to pick up the ball and to create the spaces needed around him to then get his wide men involved. But one player who had a consistently, I think I would describe as a poor performance was Eddie Nketiah, and that's not on his own accord. It was unfortunate that Eddie was just not being able to find the ball, not having the ball fed to him enough. He had 8 touches in the game as at the point of the 55th minute, and I felt like he needed to play a little bit deeper so that he could help open the space up around him. And actually, when Jesus came on in the 65th minute, you could tell immediately there was just more happening in that sort of region of the pitch, because he was able to drop deep, help those around him, and just continue to get things flowing. There was an excellent chance for Eddie as well, where Rice does brilliantly to intercept the loose ball. Odegaard slots it into Nketiah. His run is amazing. It's great reading of the ball, but the execution was poor. And it's those moments where you look at the players like Nketiah where he needs to do better. Maybe he needs to take the shot on a little bit earlier. So yeah, I mean, give me your thoughts and assessment on Eddie's performance, and maybe am I being too harsh in that he could have done more in getting in the game, or is it just in his nature to just be that type of number 9?
No, I think it's his game's come on massively in the last year as a result of not being that player that waits for chances. He really works hard. And there were a couple of times, one where Vieira clipped it over the top and he ran into the channel. He's narrowly offside. But again, I felt like in Nketiah, it was one of those games where he was making the runs and he was trying. And there were times in the game where I thought, there's space there to play that into. Like, instead of playing a 5-yard pass, just show a bit more ambition. And I think Nketiah was probably a victim of that style of play. And when you're playing as a 9 and you've got a lot of sideways passes, a lot of slow build-up going on, it is difficult to get into the game. And I think, I mean, he didn't have a good game, but I think he was probably a slight victim of how the team played and how the game flowed. But by the time he came off, I would have hooked him at halftime today. I felt it was one of those games, not because he was doing anything particularly wrong, but more that it felt like a Gabriel Jesus kind of game. Felt like one of those where just his tenacity and just his ability to like wind up players and get at them and kick them and get in their ear, all the things that Jesus does are all the things that I think helps put that kind of you can get at Arsenal nonsense to bed. Jesus is one of those players, he's up for the fight. And if you kick him, he's going to come back and kick you harder next time. And he's not scared to roll around on the floor. He's not scared to argue and push someone. He is someone, if someone's walking past him, he just shoves them. And like, there's quite often no reason. It's just like, I'm going to get in your head. I'm going to make you not want to play against me. And I think that's how Everton set up their team. So to have that player like him on the pitch. So as I say, I don't think Nketiah did anything bad today. I just felt that there was something different Jesus could have brought. And I would have been tempted to start Jesus on the right and give Saka a breather today and have Nketiah on the pitch as well. But yeah, ultimately, I think it's the second week in a row where we've saw the level that Gabriel Jesus brings when he comes on the pitch for us. And just even when he's not scoring goals or impacting things in the box, he just has a real kind of level raiser. And because again, I didn't think he had anything kind of special. His game was okay today, but he does just get at them. He makes it difficult for people, and you just don't want to play against him. So that, I think, Nketiah was more. He was okay. Jesus is a better player, and we all know that.
The goal itself comes quite late in the game, and before we talk about that, the levels does drop. Very similar to the first half. And actually, both halves, I feel like they mirrored each other quite similarly. In the sense that in the first half, beginning bit was great. We were looking really confident. Possession, dominating, and then it just takes a dump. Similarly, in the second half, we were even better in the opening 15 minutes, I think. And then it just, I don't know, something happens where it becomes really flat again. We're relying on half chances or relying on, set pieces to be given for us. Fortunate to get the goal in the way that we did. And actually, interestingly enough, it came from a corner, which we had 11 of in this game. Against United, we had 12 corners. And I'm eager to talk about our set pieces and, why we have so many and why we're unable to do enough with those. But before we do that, explain to me, if you can, why you felt like the game again just died down a little bit, why the tempo dropped in the middle of that second half.
I do think the international break had an impact on it. I think it's one of those maintaining that intensity. We had kind of spells of intensity today where we worked really hard, and I think the cohesion wasn't really there at times between our players. We had some beautiful moments of play where we really worked the pockets, we really worked the space, and we were able to really drag Everton around the pitch and kind of loosen that low block that was really, really stiff throughout the game. But then there were other periods where there was very, very basic lapses of concentration between players, or that coordination and kind of telepathy that we see across the pitch quite often. Just, it was almost like it was broken at times. And I think Trossard was someone that was definitely at fault there a few times. Rice had a few moments where he gave a couple of sloppy balls away. And there were other players like that where things, even Martinelli at the start of the game, that pass going right across the pitch and out of play. We had a few moments like that, and I think it was generally, I think at both periods of the game, that was what was happening when we had our 10-minute spells in each half where we really, really kind of dropped the level. And a huge amount of it was our own doing. It wasn't because Everton did well. And again, we misplaced a pass. The crowd got excited. Everton seemed to get a bit of life about them, came forward, and they didn't do anything with it. But it was more our sloppy passing was letting them back into the game. And I am hoping that that's because of the international break, and I'm prepared to give them a pass on that because they haven't been playing together for 2 weeks. But it was concerning that there were so many passes being misplaced or poor touches, or even if we weren't losing the ball, the pass wasn't going to the position you would like the player to receive it in, and then that impacts the next pass and the next pass, and we either lose it or it takes time. We almost have to restart the build-up. So yeah, I would probably put that down to the international break today, but let's see next weekend. If we're still talking about it then, it's probably something that is a bit more concerning.
Well, it's 2 games where Arsenal have had to rely on set pieces in order to find the key goal to get the victory. And before we talk about the goal, let's talk about a little bit more about why it is that we're, in my opinion anyway, I feel like we're just so poor on our corners. Most teams they'll be so grateful to have 11 corners or 12 corners a game. And for us, I felt like they were just not being utilised enough. I got a lot of stick from fans, on the internet for making the point, making the argument that we're just not utilising our corners well enough. I know the goal is an exception because it was worked really well, but when we're delivering balls into the box, they're either not in the right spaces, not being delivered in the right spaces, or when they are being delivered in the right spaces, our tall physical players are not being dominant enough. Again, look, am I being too unfair here, or do I make a point? Because there's going to be a game where we're going to have so many set pieces and very little chances, but we're going to end up losing the game because we weren't able to take advantage of those, situations.
I think you're probably being a bit harsh. We have had the most corners in the league this year with 47, so 11 more than City, who are in second place. And I think teams have realised that we're quite a threat from corners, so they're really packing the box. They are working us hard from set pieces, but we do score a lot of goals from set pieces. And I think if you look at the goal today, it was extremely well worked. If you just keep whipping balls into the box against Everton, although we have the physical presence, they've got huge players like Tarkowski, Onana, Braithwaite, and so on that will just keep heading those balls clear. Beto is massive as well. So I think it's about becoming smarter at how we work them. And we've got so much variety with our set pieces that I think we will score a lot of goals from them. And our stats are right up there with the very best. And yeah, I think it's probably one of those, when you look at the number of corners we do get versus the number we score from, it's quite low in that sense. But at the same time, I think we get so many corners that you do have to rework things and come up with different ideas. But yeah, I don't really know the true answer. I think today's game, you're playing against one of the best sides at dealing with corners, because they're more than happy to hoof the ball out for a throw-in because they know they're going to hoof it forward and head it away and so on. And it's the same with corners for Everton. They are one of these sides that Sean Dyche is a great set-piece coach. He's someone that going forward, that's where his team score goals. At the back, that's where his team makes sure they don't concede goals. So I think corners aren't something that I'm worried about right now. I'm more worried about not scoring from open play as frequently as we did last year. But I do think that will come. And I think, again, a bit like Zinchenko just coming back, I don't think Jesus is fully fit yet. And that's possibly why he didn't start today. So I think we're very much easing our way into the season, and I'm hopeful that all these things just need fine tuning.
I hope you're right, because like I said, comparing to the beginning of last season, it's almost night and day. And I get it. Like, it's unfair to have that expectation, but when we were so close to that league title, we have to expect the best version of ourselves. We currently sit fourth. We're level on points with Liverpool and Spurs. City are the only side to have a 100% record. I don't think, other than Brighton, who, to be fair to them, despite losing that game to West Ham, maybe you could call that a blip. Aside from Brighton, I don't think many teams have been perfect, or near to their usual, I guess, selves. So maybe I need to cut Arsenal a bit of slack. But that goal that we scored does show me everything I need to know about this squad and about what we're capable of doing. Being able to draw magic moments like that. What a goal to score. And judging by the celebrations in the corner with Arteta and the training staff, it looked like maybe this was something that they were working on. I did see on a number of different occasions there were more corners this time round than against United, where corners were taken short and they were very intricately played. But yeah, talk me through the goal, what you can remember of it, because there were so many moving parts to it, and why it stands out as being one of those brilliant goals we're going to look back on at the end of the season.
What I really liked was when the ball came to Fabio Vieira, he's clearly lining up a shot, but he very quickly moves his feet, and I think he plays it inside. Is it Zinchenko? And
Mm.
Zinchenko works it, and then when Saka gets into that position, it's a lovely cutback, and the way Trossard moves his feet, opens his body, and just plays that right across goal into, I think, did clip the inside of the post. Uh, it was a position where there's absolutely no way Jordan Pickford's getting to that ball, and to play that kind of intricate football in such a crowded space and actually make it look like we had space to play football, that shows the quality of this side. And we talk about the importance of technicians on a football pitch. There you're seeing Vieira, Zinchenko, Saka, and Trossard all playing together and all really working a crowded space and creating something truly brilliant. I think I texted you straight after it went in saying liquid football, and that's how it felt. And it's crazy because in the 10 minutes leading up to the game where you talked about Everton coming back into it, I was thinking this is going to be one of those days. I never felt Everton were going to score. I just felt that we weren't going to be able to find that moment. And look, City have these games where they really struggle to break down a team, and a Haaland winner appears in the 78th minute or something. And every team goes through these games each season, and it's games like this that help define champions because they're games you don't want to play. You really have to work for it. Things aren't always going your way, and it's where people step up. And like Trossard's only scored one goal for Arsenal before today, and he's someone that I think if he can get 5 or 6 this season, that's 5 or 6 from a player that we didn't have last season. So getting those goals from those kind of players, that's how you win titles. And we've seen it back in the day when Makeda got a couple of goals for United, and they were crucial for their title win. I think players like Trossard are obviously much more established first team players than someone like a Makeda was, but it's those goals from players that you don't expect that kind of really help push you on for a title win. And Trossard, as we've said, had a fairly mixed game today. I felt I don't think it was concentration. I think he had some really good moments. I felt just that telepathy was off with his teammates. But whenever that goal happened, everything just seemed to click into place, and his movement, the finish, everything was just spot on. And it was a really, really nice piece of play. So how did you feel when it went in?
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, that goal was the spark, or it was like almost like a snapshot of what we want to see on a more consistent basis. And it was, I guess, I needed to see that goal in order to be reminded that this team is capable and they're good enough to be able to generate moments like this that we were, I guess, we took granted for at the back, not at the back end of last season, but just throughout last season. It was so beautifully well worked, and I don't think it was actually intended to be played the way it was, because if you look back at it, Vieira picks up the ball, takes a touch, he looks like he wants to maybe have a shot or maybe play the ball back across the other side of the pitch, but as soon as he sees Tarkowski closing him down, he decides to turn, play the ball to Zinchenko takes a touch, passes it on to Odegaard. Odegaard takes a touch, passes it into Saka. It's almost very like on autopilot, as if, you know, they're muscle memory. Like they just know what to do without even having to think about it. Saka's in the box. He knows that from the corner of his eye, he can see Trossard making a run. Trossard's instinct is to take that shot first time, and it's a thumping finish. Top corner. There's no way Pickford is getting that. And it's a typical sort of well-worked Arsenal goal that tears open the opposition. And it's just a shame that we're not able to see enough of that. And I guess that needs to be a reminder for the players as well, more importantly, that they are more than capable of, you know, playing that sort of carefree football. And maybe it's the case that because we're too early in the season, they just don't have that rhythm going yet. But I tell you what was quite worrying for me was immediately after scoring that goal, you know, we're often the victims, aren't we, of our own complacency, or, not finding that killer goal to just kill the game. For some reason, mentally, we're happy to deal with the pressure of hanging on. And after we get the goal, we almost decide to just take the foot off the gas a little bit. Whereas the momentum's all on our side. We score such a fabulous goal. Everyone's here. Everton are, broken. If we wanted to, we could put our foot on their neck, close the game out, play with that higher bit of intensity. But instead, Mikalenko is allowed to go through over the top. It's a route one from Pickford, and that shot kills that spark that we had. And I'm struggling to understand why that is.
I don't know. It was one of those as well. When we scored, I expected us to really put the foot down and go at them. But we had our chances. There was the Odegaard one where he went through 1-on-1 and kind of hit it straight at Pickford. I think it's right before the goal as well. We had the Odegaard chances again where he skipped past his man and smashes it with his left foot, and it kind of goes straight at Pickford. So these chances were appearing again. Jesus ran through, ball over the top, controls it, and his second touch is a bit light, and fullback manages to get in. I think it's Mikalenko, just kind of, and there's a bit of a collision, but it's definitely not a foul. And I just felt that those moments in a game are things that you take that chance and suddenly you're in cruise control, you're seeing the game out with ease, and it became a bit more kind of KG and so on. But again, Everton didn't have chances, and I think that's part of it where they were making it difficult for us to play, but we had chances to really kill the game. And I do think we need to be a bit more clinical with our finishing, and that's why I say that Odegaard had a fairly mixed game in my eyes today, because I do think that chance where he creates for himself, he skips in, he should be putting that in one of the corners, he should be scoring that. The one-on-one again, he had Saka running outside him. I think probably right to shoot, but it's one of those, if you shoot from there and you've got options, you have to score. So that's why I think you have to put it down to a fairly mixed performance, because for all the good he did on and off the ball, there were key moments in that game where, had we not have got the game, we would be analysing Odegaard's misses and saying he needed to take those chances, and ultimately it was those chances that cost us the game, in the same way that we looked at Eddie Nketiah last year after the City game and said, if Nketiah had scored those, it's a different game. So we have to hold Odegaard to the same standards for those, and I think those being ruthless when we do get the chances, because when you score and you go 1-0 up away from home, you're always going to get a bounce back from the opposition, where the crowd have an expectation, the players want to react, and it's when you do hit them on the counter, you need to take your chances. And I think today's game ultimately for me felt like one. Take those chances, cruise control, because like we had 74% of the possession, we played 671 passes, we had a lot of control, and they had one shot on target, which I can't actually remember Raya making a save, but I just felt like he looked so composed in goal. He looked at ease. He was picking crosses out with ease, which is actually why I think he played, because his two strengths are the ball with his feet and picking crosses out of the air. And that's exactly how Everton played, was on the counter. So there's long passes where he could come out and sweep up with his feet, and there were a lot of crosses, which again, he was picking out of the air with ease. So for me, it's one of those, being clinical with our chances will give the perception that we are really dominant in games, because at times when we're not taking those, people perceive us as not actually having the control that we do. So yeah, more zip on passes, more control, more clinical finishing, and I think we're winning games like this 4-0.
You mentioned David Raya. Eager to kind of hear your assessment on him. First performance for Arsenal, debut game, clean sheet. I think he showed a fair account of himself. The distribution was what you would expect. He was quite, I think, very, very sharp. Yeah. Very aware of his surroundings as well, and he was very quickly able to get the ball moving. I think Pickford, to be fair to him, he did see a lot more of the ball, and he did demonstrate really good ball like retention, but also just playing the ball well, safely, whilst having it at his feet. But we saw signs of Raya as well, didn't we? What he's capable of, especially the long balls going over the top. I noticed that those ones going over the top for whoever was up there, whether it's Saka, whether it was, I think majority of the time it was fed into Saka, wasn't it? But yeah, good distribution, good all-round performance.
Yeah, very good. I'm just looking at the stats here. You said about Pickford seeing a lot more of the ball. Pickford had 4 more touches than Raya.
Interesting.
So Raya actually had 45 touches, played 34 passes, and he completed 32 of those passes, which, considering he was spraying balls around, that's pretty impressive. He's completed 7 of 9 long passes. And by contrast, Pickford only completed 44% of his passes. So he actually only played 18 passes that reached the opposition. So that kind of goes against what I thought of Pickford. I thought he looked very good with the ball at his feet. He was playing a lot of good passes whenever we were pressing them. But actually, when you look at the numbers, it is funny because I thought Raya didn't have a huge amount of the ball, but to have 44 touches, 45 touches, whatever I've just said, is pretty insane for a keeper that had a quiet game. And but to be honest, we all knew what he could do with his feet. He's one of the best keepers in the league with his feet. But the thing that's always impressed me about him is his ability to collect the ball in the air. So he just literally scoops the ball out. He did have that one moment where he dropped it, and it was a foul on him. I can't remember who it was, but the whistle went very, very quickly. Tarkowski, yeah. But no, all in all, really impressed with him. And I think that was tactical that Arteta decided to pick a keeper with those true skill sets against a team that were going to play like Everton did. So look, if him and Ramsdale are pushing each other and playing like that, it's only going to be good for us. And that is also our first clean sheet, isn't it? Or have we had one already?
Oh, that's a great question. Did we not get a clean sheet on the opening day?
No, we conceded late.
Oh no, we did. No, we did. We did get a clean sheet at Palace.
Oh yes, Palace. It's our second clean sheet. So yeah, but Raya's first clean sheet. So it's but yeah, look, I was really impressed with him. I didn't think he was overly worked, but I thought he brought a real calmness to the team, and he looked very good with the ball at his feet and in the air. So all in all, I think great debut for him. And if we see more of that, we're going to be very happy, because I mean, you don't want your keeper to be making 10 spectacular saves a game. You want them to be making one and dealing with it, and for us playing a big part in the build-up. So I just felt he was very impressive when he was called upon, and I was also really impressed with William Saliba again. I thought he looked like a monster at the back today. So it was just one of those performances that we saw just how good he is, and it was great to see Ben White at right back and seeing that intricacy that we saw last season down the right-hand side. So yeah, all in all, I think it was just a good day's work against a stubborn team, and one that, whilst we would have liked to have seen 4 scored, look, on another day we take those chances and we are all in cloud 9. But it was about the 3 points today, and that's what we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like, season after season, the more we progress, the more we develop, we nitpick at smaller, minute details, which is good, because it shows that we're good enough to do that. Last season, we were complaining at how poor we were. This season, this game, it wasn't a fact that we were poor, it was a fact that we weren't clinical enough. Maybe next season, we destroy them. But that mental barrier has been broken, and Arteta has finally won at Goodison Park, and again, that's going to be a massive, massive boost for everyone. And so we've arrived. It's now time for that part of the show. Good, bad. So, Adam, give me your good, and bad moments.
Good. I'm gonna go with. Oh, Raya's distribution. Good. I'm gonna go with Trossard's goal. Just beautiful finish. Very like Ozil against Napoli, in the way he just opened his foot and then did you say ugly is the last one?
Bad.
Oh, bad. Odegaard's missed one-on-one. So what about you?
Well, it's a bit of a strange. Yeah, so I was just gonna say it's a bit of a strange game to be making a good, bad analysis because I felt like there were like more frustrating / bad things about the game. Again, because we're Arsenal fans, because we're selfish and greedy, and we take things for granted. We want more of the same of what we get, or what we get a little taste of. So my good moment was the Martinelli goal, because I felt like he did everything right there. The finish was beautiful. It was unfortunate that it was deemed offside and he was taken off. But that was a really good sign for me that showed he's sharp in front of goal and he's able to be clinical as well. My good moment is the goal that we actually scored. The build-up was just beautiful. Liquid football, as you described it. And my bad moment was probably seeing Kai Havertz come. No, I'm joking. my bad moment was probably I'll have to say, oh, this is difficult. Do you know what? Controversial, but my bad moment was seeing Declan Rice give the ball away to Decore, which could have ended really, really horribly wrong for us had Saliba not timed that challenge, or that lack of challenge, so perfectly. So that is my bad moment of the game.
It was interesting because he had that one where he gave the ball away, and then right at the end of the game he had one and he went to pass it to Trossard, and it's a very poor pass. But it's one of those, Trossard turns and Rice passes it essentially to the man, and there wasn't enough zip on it. I think that summed up kind of Trossard just didn't seem to be at the same wavelength as a lot of his teammates throughout the game. And it's a weird one saying that because he won us the game. So it's why it was such a mixed performance. But you mentioned Kai Havertz. I think it's only fair that we give him the praise he deserves today. He was very good when he came on, and he was someone that really battled. I think at the end of the game, him, Rice, Tomiyasu again was very solid when he came on. And those were the players that really helped us get that win over the line. And I think Declan Rice he had a couple of moments that he won't want to look back. Well, he will want to look back on it and analyse what he's done, because that seems to be what he's all about. But for me, they were the key players that helped get us over the line. And we've talked about it before about Arsenal not having those players. And I think we're now building a team that have got them. And the other thing as well is the physicality. Before, even last season, Everton looked like a much bigger side than us, and whereas this time, you kick us, we'll kick you back harder. And I think that's something that people are learning about Arsenal this season. We can play some really nice football, but we've got players like Rice in there. We've got a big, strong Tomiyasu coming on at left back. Ben White loves kicking people. And you've got Jesus right at the end of the game just pushing Mikalenko just for the crack. Just because. And it was one of those, I love to say it, I'm really surprised that Jesus didn't get booked today, and because he had a few nibbles. Or did I miss a booking for him? No, he didn't get booked.
No, I don't think he did. No, he didn't get booked, no.
But yeah, I really felt he deserved a yellow card today. But it's all those like little things that help you see out a horrible 1-0 win at Goodison. And the other great thing was the maturity at the end of the game. We were taking the ball to the corner. We weren't giving them anything to cling on to, and we were killing that game. And the outrage at Arsenal taking 26.5 seconds to take the corner is just glorious, because it feels like other teams, take. At one point, they were saying how long Everton were to take a corner because they were getting all the big men up from the back. Arsenal do it because we're lining up a very tactical piece of play, and suddenly it's an issue. You just can't win in this game. So when one team does something, they're praised for it. When we do it, it seems we're criticised. And it to me, it just feels like Sky Sports and so on are turning into Talk Sport. They're trying to find an angle of controversy every week that helps them promote the Monday night show and really have something to talk about, when quite often there isn't actually something. Like, if Sky weren't having a stop clock on that corner, no one would have paid any attention at how long it took that corner to be taken. So yeah, but look, we've got 3 points. That's all that matters.
Absolutely. 3 points and Champions League to look forward to. Okay, good stuff. Well, it's that time of the show again where we must say goodbye. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's listened up until this point. Thank you very, very much. If you did enjoy this episode, please do make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Let us know what you thought of the show by reaching out to us on Twitter. You can find us over there at Arsenal Therapy. You can also find Adam over there at AdamKeys_, and you can find myself over there at Gunner Since 96. As always, we will be back in a very short few days for the Champions League, of course. But if you can't wait until then, make sure to head over to the Arsenal Therapy YouTube channel for the 15-minute show where we'll be taking you through all the latest bits of Arsenal updates. That's every Tuesdays, and we also have a brand new preview show on a Friday as well. And yes, you guessed it, the show is indeed 15 minutes long. So make sure to head over there to the Arsenal Therapy YouTube channel, as well as the website as well, for all the blog posts where we'll be taking you through the games, breaking them down, giving our thoughts and feelings, and much, much more. But until then, take care of yourselves, have a lovely next few days, and we'll speak to you very, very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.